Hey, my name is Steven, and I make fonts as Arrow type. I'm finally delving into the italic thin master layer of name Mono. Recently, I've been working on kind of getting the thin Roman layer close to ready to publish the next version of this typeface. But before I do that, I need to bring the italic thin up to speed. So what we have here is pretty raw as a first draft still, although the regular and black weights are pretty well polished, but not yet compatible with these. This probably paints a worse picture than we have, but also maybe it paints a more complete picture than what we have. I have so far brought name sans text thin and copied it into here to make the basis of name mono. And because this typeface is generated from three masters, I should say three masters or sources. So there's Roman and italic, and these each have a main layer, and then the instances are either those layers, or so here's regular, here's black, and then they get interpolated from the layers. If you're watching me, you probably already know this basic thing, but if you're just showing up for the first time, hello, and thanks for dropping by. I'm gonna do a bit of progress to this typeface. One other thing that occurs to me seeing this is that there's a lot of like color marking going on here in these glyphs. You might be wondering what secret code is signified by these mark colors, and the answer is I don't know anymore. I think at various points, I basically tend to use these as a very like transactional, short-term meaning. So like if I'm really pushing for a specific milestone in a project, like finishing the regular to black portion of the typeface, which is available already right now, I'll use these marks to kind of like designate what's finished, what I still am working on, etc. But I kind of like don't have a grand theory. Generally, red means bad, yellow means take another look, green means seems good to me. And then no marking often means this is a composed glyph. It's not drawn specifically. But yeah, for now, I'm just going to go to the basic and yeah, just start working on it. So I'm going to start with the lowercase and let's get a spacing string ready. Make spacing tab. And let's see. The one other thing I do want to check is how our glyphs are doing against our X height and our overall thickness. So in my previous videos, I was checking, okay, these are basically 60 units, which I just interpolated a slightly thicker version of the Roman. Probably put that video out just prior to this one, really. And the X height is slightly taller. Let's see. So this is 1021. I think it did end up as 1021. Yeah. So the X height is good. The thickness is a little low, but this is actually sort of funny and a little tricky to know. I think it worked pretty well in the Roman to just kind of ignore the question of weight and just interpolate the right weight kind of at the last or a stage after making everything compatible. That worked really well, except for I shouldn't have really bothered setting up alternate layers first because those were kind of ignored in the final interpolation. So I may not do that, but I don't have to think about quite all of that just exactly now. For now, I'm going to Yeah, I'm going to raise things up to this X height. And I will have to lower them down by like a unit later. Right? That's what I just did for all of those, I think. Let me go check that. Okay, yeah, I hope to check the video. So you know what? I'm going to try something and just shift this down by 1. It seems like a really silly change, but I think it's a reasonable thing to do. It might help us skip 20 minutes of work later, which is always a nice thing when you can do it. Oh, I should also set up these alignment zones. I'm just using 40 for all of them. Okay. Cool. And that just kind of gives us a nice visual representation of about how much overshoot we're doing. I often set these up and go into the middle. If you're working on a 1000 UPM typeface, I feel like 20 units is a bit more sensible, and it's something that deserves a little more thought probably than just setting it to 20 and accepting that. There's interesting things that happen, especially around the width axis, say. It's been pointed out to me that the narrower a font, the more extreme overshoot looks. And then the wider the font, the more you need to have overshoot to make things look correct. But it also depends on the overall scale of the font, like in real life usage. If a font is used and somebody sees it at 5 feet tall letters, then you may not need any overshoot almost at all. I've also noticed that if it's really close to like the edge of a rectangle, then that increases the appearance of overshoot in a big way. All right, by the way, I should not view master compatibility, but I do want to view the background layer, or the regular italic layer, I should say. So I kind of understand where things are going. So we'll add a bend here. Oops, don't want that. And let's try this. I'm going to use the rotate key right there to get approximately the same rotation going. And pop this up here. And then let's pop this in the background. Oh, the other thing we should do is set up our exports so we can see down here how they are coming along. So I'm just going to pull up. And I wonder, let me try to see if I can just copy and paste these wholesale. Basically, I have to edit a couple of values, but that saves me a little bit of time. So for instance, I want this to be light, italic. And I want to click italic. You should all have the italic checked. Cool. I don't actually know if that is useful, but because I think checking italic does enough actually. But might as well. Okay, cool. So now we have this filled out, which is, oops. Now, once I make it compatible, I guess. Let's let's see. Oh, it needs to be taller for one. But then, why am I slow? I would expect this to, and it's between actually here and there that it's not. I see. Aha, okay, this is lower than this, so it's not clocking that as the start point. Maybe I'll just, I mean, I could just fix it normally, but that also looks pretty good to me. All right. This is pretty darn close, but we should boost up the X height a little bit. Wait, what am I doing? Oh my gosh, this is the wrong source. We want it here. Okay. Let's pop this into the background. Cool. Okay. Looks pretty good. Correct the metrics. The italic geometric C. It's a weird one. It never looks right. That's kind of true of the C in general, but I'd say it's especially challenging in the context of an italic. Okay. A tip I find pretty handy for italics when you're defining them is that they can be given a slope such that, like 11.31, for instance, is 5 up, 1 over, or 1 over 5 up. And that way, if you're moving things along that angle, I can do like hold shift and then go 10 units up and then 2 units over, and it's right on the same line. Wait, that was moving it by 100. Yeah, so that just like makes drawing it much faster, which is kind of nice. And maybe it slightly makes rendering somehow slightly better at some scales, but that's probably debatable. But certainly drawing it becomes nicer and easier, which is pretty cool. All right. Hard to say if this should be boosted. Yeah, it looks good like that. This should... This definitely has to change. So let's see what we're doing here. Oh yeah, it's a bit of a fancy one. Okay. So first of all, let's use this script to scale these. This is just a script with a hotkey. It's up here. Scale points to 0 width. And then let's pop this guy more close to the middle. And then let's copy and paste that and flip it 180. We'll put it in roughly the spot we want it to be. And I'm going to simply select both those contours and then remove overlap. It's just like Command-Shift-O. And then let's find the intersection here using our rotate tool. Click there as the origin. Oh no. Why does that not work? Aha, okay. We only want to rotate this guy actually. Much, much better. Cool. And then we do have to move this down slightly because I want it to overshoot the descender line a little bit. And then let's pop it back out this way more. Something pretty interesting I learned recently is that at least usually extrema are very useful, but they can lead to short segments like this. And I found that in generating outlines to move into a CAD program, a 3D program, actually for the, I don't know if this is visible. For this guy, the F here, it worked better without this extrema. So I think I'm actually going to delete that. Because I suspect if it works better in a CAD program, that might kind of indicate that it just like shapes a little better in general. And since it's at the descender height, it doesn't really, I guess I should throw this in the background. It doesn't really necessarily need to be super in line with everything else to the degree that like things at the X height really should be. Okay, so there we have our relatively decent F. Let's yeah. Looks relatively decent. This is a bit funny. So I drew it as kind of fresh in this italic mono, and I kind of wish I could extrapolate to get a closer. Actually, wait a minute. Let me try to see if reinterpolate does its thing. Aha, yeah, it pretty much does. That's so cool. Okay, cool. Let's bring back our metrics. Okay. So we want this to be about there. And let's set up these notes again, just so I can have a reference guide. So this is 61. These are like 60. This is 53. Okay, so that's enough reference for now, basically. That's way too big. We want it to be 53. And we actually want this to be a little lower, so it matches the X height. Kind of matching these. This whole thing feels like it should come down a little bit further. Okay, I've officially run out of things to say at the moment, which probably means that I should stop recording and listen to a podcast or some music so I can just kind of stay zoned in to what I'm doing and not continue making a pointlessly distracting video. But yeah, this is still ugly. Okay, I should at least finish this before changing course. All right, let's try to think of this in terms of what we have here too. It's a bit funny when you have a design that like is a little bit weird. There's conventions around the G. Often you just try to make things look balanced, but then what does that mean really? Kind of balanced according to your expectations. Thin styles can be pretty challenging to draw because there's not a lot of room to hide. If you're going for a very low contrast, it's really obvious when things are kind of wonky, whereas in a really thick style, it's not quite so obvious. Oh, I kind of hate it, but it's close-ish. So I should probably move on and then do it in a few more passes. It's kind of a little silly to get overly hung up on any one glyph, and much more effective to kind of get it close to what it needs to be and then fix it in multiple passes. Because as you draw more of the typeface, you basically become better at seeing and manipulating the sorts of shapes that you're drawing. And it's not something that necessarily like is totally obvious until you're really in the mix of it. Even though I've drawn this specific typeface a lot, like I haven't drawn the italic styles for a while. And the italic thin has been even longer. So kind of have to give myself a bit of grace, perhaps. And yeah. I guess I said that I was going to stop with that G, but suddenly Okay, that one's kind of cool. Actually, it didn't work out, but I kind of like this, like how it gets a little thin there. But I'm not going to do that in this typeface. It has a purpose, but it kind of makes me want to explore that in a future typeface. Okay. That's kind of a tough thing about fonts. A lot of the time you have to like leave ideas that you see on the cutting room table, or at least like try to remember them for a future time. But that's, I guess, why drawing is so important, both by hand and just on a computer, because that's where a lot of ideas come from. They just come from accidents that happen along the way of drawing other things. Okay. And this is a weird shape of an eye. And there's a stylistic set that is different, but I sort of love this eye. The idea is that it's like this blend of sort of a typical monospace eye, like here, and then a little bit like a cursive eye where you would come and loop around. So it's got this like in stroke. And then it's neither thing, but it kind of fits in text if you don't think about convention and you just allow it to be some shapes. I feel like it kind of works. But I'm not so confident in that I didn't also give a bailout of a stylistic set. Two people. All right, so the K will be another one where it takes a little bit more drawing, but yeah, I'm tired of talking, so I'm going to sign off. With that, thanks for watching. I hope if you're working on something creative or you're working on something that you got to work on, I hope it's going well. I hope you're doing well. Thanks a lot. Take care.